gotta go potty.
Listen, if you love a bloody good ghost story, you have come to the right place, my friend. This is the Darkling Chronicles. I share real-life ghost experiences with my audience. I started on TikTok. This is my very first podcast. I'm going to share with you tonight a story that a lady called Kathryn sent to me that has scared people on my page, and I hope it scares you too. Now, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Kathryn recently because she sent me a couple of ghost stories. And I have to say, she's a very genuine person. So when she told me that everything in this ghost story is true, I 100% believe her. But the most important thing is, what do you think? And tonight's ghost story is called The Woman with No Face. Kathryn starts by saying, "Hi, everything I'm about to tell you is totally true. It happened about 25 years ago, when all of my children were small. I have 4 children. My youngest was only 2. Then I had my twin girls aged about 8, and my eldest girl was about 10. We moved into what we thought was our perfect house. It was a very old place, with Tudor beams throughout, but it needed a lot of work. Things started happening pretty much straight away. Practically the day we moved in, my husband started suffering really bad with depression, which he had never experienced before in his life. It was completely out of character. At the time, we were renovating the loft to make 2 bedrooms for the twins, as well as doing the kitchen and installing some double glazing, all while our 2-year-old son was still sleeping in a cot in our bedroom. One night, my husband suddenly woke up, went straight over to the cot, picked our son up, and started shaking him violently. It took all of my strength to get my son away from him. My husband didn't remember any of it the next day. A couple of days later, I was bringing washing down the stairs and saw a big black dog lying at the bottom. We didn't have a dog, and there was no way one could have gotten into the house. I dropped the washing, and when I looked again, the dog had vanished. The kitchen was so cold you could see your breath. My brother is a plumber, so I got him to install the best boiler we could afford to warm the house up, but it made no difference. My girls were scared to go upstairs on their own to the bathroom. One day, one of the twins needed a wee. As she went up the stairs, she glanced into my bedroom and screamed. I said, "What's the matter?" She said, "Oh my God, Mummy, there's a lady sitting at the end of your bed." I asked, "What does she look like?" She said, "I don't know. She has no face, but she's wearing a black cloak." I told her not to be silly, went up, and of course, there was nothing there. A couple of nights later, her twin sister woke up screaming in the middle of the night. I ran upstairs and asked what was wrong. She said, "There's a lady sitting at the end of my bed, Mummy." I said, "There's nobody there, darling." She insisted, "Yes, she's sitting there. She's got a black cloak over her head and no face." That's when I started to think something was really going on in this house. Then, a few nights after that, my eldest daughter woke up needing the toilet. It was right next to her bedroom. I suddenly heard a massive scream. I ran into the bathroom and asked, "What's the matter?" She said, "There's a lady in the bath. She's under the water. She's wearing a black robe, and she has no face." That really freaked me out. I decided to get a psychic medium involved, someone well known in our area who I'd used to see a few times, though never at this house. She came to the front door, put one foot inside and said, "I'm not coming in. There's a very bad spirit in this house." Then she left, and that was the end of that. Things quietened down for a day or two. But then it started again. It was just me and my son in the house. The girls were at school. I was sitting on the landing folding laundry, and my 2-year-old son was playing from room to room. It was bonfire night and starting to get dark. The doors in the house were so old and heavy you could barely move them. Every door had a key in the lock, but none of them worked because they were so rusted with age. We never closed our bedroom door because it was so heavy. Then suddenly my son walked into the bedroom and the door slammed shut and locked, with him locked inside. I totally panicked. I thought, how the hell am I going to get my baby out of this room? It was getting dark. I tried everything. Nothing worked. In the end, I had to call the fire brigade. Even they couldn't open it. They had to take the entire door frame off to get him out. It was terrifying. My poor son was traumatized, as you can imagine. The final straw was one morning when I was getting the girls ready for school. My eldest daughter was sitting on the toilet and I said, "Come on, we're going to be late for school." As I walked to the stairs, I glanced back and saw her sitting on the loo. And then, all of a sudden, she was picked up and thrown across the bathroom by nothing. That same day, I put the house on the market. I didn't even tell my husband. Within 8 weeks, we were out of there. A couple of years later, I bumped into our old next-door neighbour. He asked me, "Why did you move out so quickly?" I told him the house was haunted, and he said my great-granddad built those houses. I asked him about the history of the one we lived in. He said the original owners were doctors, and the husband had died. They had a big black dog, and the wife had been found drowned in the bath. I really don't think she enjoyed watching us do the renovations, and she didn't like us living there. Now, Kathryn has sent through 2 other ghost stories that are just mind-blowing, so I'm going to read them both to you right now. The first one is called The Black Orb and the Out-of-Body Nightmare. So Kathryn starts by saying, "Hi, you asked me if I remember anything else to message you. Well, I totally forgot about this. One day I felt really unwell and was waiting for my husband to come home so I could go to bed for a sleep. He started work very early in the morning and finished about 2:30 in the afternoon. The house was totally draining me by this point. Anyway, I got into bed at 3 p.m. and went straight to sleep. But then, about 4-ish, I woke up to the feeling that something or someone was standing over me. I opened my eyes and could see a black shadow in the corner of the room on the ceiling, and a big black orb flew across the room. I have seen white orbs before, but never a black one. It had gone dark by now, so I quickly turned the light on and everything was fine. That night, we went to bed as normal, and I woke up at 3-ish with a feeling that I couldn't move a muscle. I was totally paralysed. Then I started floating up out of my body, so slowly, higher and higher. Then my body turned over and I could see myself and my husband asleep in the bed. I then floated over to my husband and came down until my nose was against his. In my head, I was screaming his name to help me, but he couldn't hear me. The next thing, I jumped up and was back in bed. I was so scared, I woke my husband up and told him. He said I was probably dreaming, but I know that it was real. Later that night, I felt a hand holding mine, so softly but firmly. I just thought it was my husband's hand, but I looked at the clock and thought, why hasn't he gone to work yet? It's 5 a.m. So I turned in the bed and it was empty. He had already gone to work. I wasn't scared of the hand feeling, it felt safe, so I fell back asleep. But this happened again. Something was holding my hand. I think whoever that was, they were protecting me. She says, "I do have another story for you. And this is the story that I'm about to tell you right now. and this story scared the life out of me. Let me know what you think. This story from Kathryn is called The Night Terror in the Mountain Villa. The hotel we were staying in was not like a high-rise hotel. It was beautiful. It was a 3-story villa dug into the mountains. It was 5-star and it was gorgeous. My sister-in-law, brother-in-law, niece and her husband were at one end of the villa, and the rest of us were a fair bit away from them, about a 4-minute walk. Every morning, me and my sister-in-law would meet up early and have the dreaded job of putting out all the towels for everyone. But this one morning was very different. I bumped into my sister-in-law as normal and she looked terrible. I asked her if she was okay and she said no. We've had a terrible night. I asked why and she started to cry. So we sat down on a wall nearby so she could explain to me what had happened. We had had a great night the night before, a really good fun night, and we all went to bed as normal. But then around 3 o'clock, Kathryn's niece and her sister-in-law's daughter had woken up with a feeling that somebody was watching her. Her husband was fast asleep next to her. Just a bit of light was shining through the curtains. She looked up at the corner of the room and she could see a dark, black shadow on the ceiling. It terrified her. The next second, the dark, black shadow was on top of her, pinning her down, holding her by the wrists and ankles. She turned her head to her husband. He was fast asleep. She started to scream his name to help her, but he didn't acknowledge her at all. That was the only thing she could move, her head. She screamed louder and louder his name, but it was as if he was paralysed himself. She felt like she was actually being abused, the way she described it. Her mum and dad heard her screaming. Her dad climbed over the balcony to try and get into the door, but it was locked. Her mum was trying the front door, but it was locked too. She felt like she was being scratched and bitten at the same time. She shouted, "Get off me now!" and it just disappeared and went. She ran out of the door screaming, running naked because it was so hot, and then all of a sudden her husband woke up. He didn't know what the hell was going on. She was so traumatised. They stayed in the reception area until morning, until everybody got up to tell us what had happened. Kathryn says, we eventually calmed her down and we were all sat around the pool talking about what had happened, Googling sleep paralysis. We were trying to reassure her that that's all it was, a bad dream. But she wasn't having any of it. She wouldn't go back in her room, so we went to the reception and spoke to the manager of the hotel. I told her what had happened. We thought she would laugh at us, but she didn't. She was amazing. She said she was going to look into the history of what the hotel was built on, and that she would get them moved to a different room immediately. We went back to the pool area, still reassuring her it was just a dream. And I noticed marks and large bruises coming out on her ankles and her wrists, and a massive bite mark with visible teeth marks on her chest. Also scratches down her neck. Nobody could explain what had just happened to her. We still can't to this day. She doesn't like talking about it. We never did get to the bottom of it, but she never slept in that room again. The hotel was not built on any kind of burial ground. It was just built into the mountains. There was no real history. If you've enjoyed today's ghost stories, please give me a follow. I'd appreciate the support. If you have your own ghost story, you can email me, thedarklingchronicles25@gmail.com. I would love to read your story. If you have TikTok, go follow me on TikTok. I would love your support on there too. Thank you for listening to my very first podcast, and I'll catch you in the next episode.